Órla, how did Saint-Gobain get involved with the Energy House project?
Well, at Saint-Gobain we were approached by the university, and it was very much of interest to ourselves even back at that point, because what we were really keen on understanding in Saint-Gobain wasn't just from the environmental aspect in terms of the carbon saving we want to do, but also looking at retrofitting, the need for correct retrofitting in terms of the occupants' well-being, health, considerations around that, and also around their energy bills and what it brought. So it was a pretty obvious fit for us, and this kind of pioneering chamber you've heard about was key then to go, right, what can we do within it?
So it's almost like we've got this massive toy, we can now test all our stuff.
Yeah, and that was interesting because then it was about what kind of build type would we do. So with that conversations I was looking at, obviously it's a Victorian house. There's about, even still today, 6 million properties that have been untreated, particularly around the wall detailing within it and solid walls. So the Victorian house type we agreed obviously to do, looking towards that and going, right, okay, it is also representative of a lot of the social housing stock that still has to be addressed within the UK as well. So yeah, that's where
so
we're
like a double win there. And I suppose it's one of the most consistent types of housing as well, isn't it? In that they were really repeated. But
also, Charlie, it's actually one of the most challenging as well, because what you have is you've got walls that need to be kind of breathable in terms of the age of the building. You also have aesthetics, so as you can see here with a nice brick facade. So how do you manage to do retrofit with managing the aesthetic side of it, but also getting it to the right way and kind of that whole retrofit approach.
So what sort of research programs have you run here?
Well, we did this in a two-phase approach. So within the full retrofit solution, we have the internal wall with an IWI solution.
So an internal wall insulation
solution on the front to maintain the aesthetics on the outside. And then on the gable side, we have an EWI solution.
External wall
an external wall insulation around that. Clearly then we have the glass solution, and then we had the floor, and then the attic solution within that. We did that in a two-phase approach, as I said. Phase one was a quantitative study looking towards energy, carbon saving, and what would that do?
So what does it cost? What does it achieve? What carbon does it save?
And the carbon it saved is about 1.4 tonne per annum on carbon. Energy cost is 63% at that time when we did that in an energy cost saving, and actually 50% reduction in air leakage. So really, really positive results on that. The next area, a couple of years later, was really important to us. It was to look at a phase two on the areas around issues around moisture movement. So we came back in and we redid the project with a real focus towards that end of unintended consequences and what the implications could be, not just on the property you're retrofitting, but potentially on your neighbouring property as well.
Because a lot of the early big insulation programs that were run in this country actually had quite bad outcomes, didn't they, for the people that lived in the housing? Because if it's not done right and it's not moisture open in these kinds of buildings, it's not a good solution.
No, it's got to be moisture open. It's, what we learned from that results, it was a validation of what we knew around the need for the moisture open solutions. So the moisture open solution that we had, an optimal solution within that with a glass mineral wool, allows, they're old buildings, they need to breathe, so it allows it to breathe. But also we understood from this kind of neighbouring property, the conditioning chamber, that if you don't do that, the negative effect you can have is you can make your neighbouring property colder, if it's not moisture open, in terms of the heat transfer, but it can cause issues around both in the property itself and with neighbours with cold. We've heard, it can cause issues around mould. So it's got to be done right with the right detailing on that and making sure in terms of the party wall detailing, window reveals, all of those considerations on that, and the real need to actually appreciate it needs to breathe, the building.
So how would you have tested these ideas and these technologies and products before this facility existed?
Oh, this facility is pioneering, because theoretically you can look at it, you can run it, you can understand it sometimes in terms of real life application run, but this was groundbreaking for us as well, in starting to bring that real life data on it, because you have lab trials and you run your lab data on it, but obviously what we're dealing with here is you can do the extremities and the temperature, you can do snow, you do rain, you can do it over time, so you can do the time simulation around that. So it was really, really key for us to really bring that back to, I call it the real life data, and share that out then with the wider community around retrofitting and what do we need to do.
Because the scale of the challenge on retrofit is vast, isn't it?
It's huge. You know, it was a huge challenge when we began this project. It still is. You know, we have so many houses that need retrofitting, and looking at this and what we have learned on our results is it is a need to retrofit or scale a whole house approach in terms of fabric first, looking at that and looking over the phased lifetime of that.
So by a phased approach, you mean the sequential steps that you need to do to tackle a building, even if you don't do them all at once?
Exactly.
So it's like a lifetime plan for what a house needs to be done to get towards zero carbon.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hugely ambitious.
Hugely, but it has to be done. You know, we have really, really tight targets. We have one of the oldest housing stocks in Europe. And what we don't want to do is we don't want to be knocking down buildings because we haven't actually fulfilled that and started doing it towards a scale. But as an industry working together, you know, which brings in some of the early pieces that we've been working on as Saint-Gobain within around skills gap, training up skills. We are actually launching next year a whole retrofit course around the whole area of internal wall insulation, and bringing that into the wider construction sector that we can all tackle together.
But it's also really understanding that quality, isn't it? So it's, you know, the training is absolutely critical. If you don't do it right, the health outcomes are bad and the energy outcomes are bad, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, it's really important. You know, you can do all the planning, all of the detailing, but actually key to this is installation as well. And actually during this project, as I said, what we want to do is understand not only from a conventional retrofit, but also working with the installers and training them. And understanding around those training needs as well, because that's as critical as the solutions that you're putting into the application.